Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Soulful Saturdays with Saylor. Around here, we cut through the noise, ditch the fluff, and dive straight into what matters: spiritual wellness, radical self acceptance, and unapologetic soulful living. I'm your host, Cindy Saylor. Each week, I'll bring you truth with a side of sass, reflections that wake you up, and reminders that you are glorious. So, whether you've got your journal, your coffee, or that wild, messy bun, you are exactly where you need to be. I'm going to be honest with you. Today might sting a little. And if it stings, it probably means it's touching something that's ready to heal. This is our episode. Blooming will cost you. Ooh, and it's worth it. Can I be honest with you? Everybody loves talking about blooming. They love the inspirational quotes, the flower graphics, the sunshine, the look how far I have come posts all over social media. And don't get me wrong, I love celebrating growth. I love watching women rise. And I love watching women step into who they were always meant to be. But can I tell the truth for a minute? Nobody really talks about what blooming actually costs. Because blooming isn't always soft music, journals, candles, pretty affirmations. Sometimes blooming looks messy. Sometimes blooming looks like sitting in your car after a conversation thinking, why do I always leave feeling drained? Sometimes blooming looks like realizing you've spent years making everybody else comfortable while quietly abandoning yourself. Yeah. And that realization alone can knock the wind out of you. And sometimes blooming looks like saying no and then fighting the guilt that shows up 5 minutes later. Because let's be honest, if you've been the strong one, the dependable one, the one everybody leans on, people get real comfortable with your yes. They get comfortable with your availability, your overgiving. And the moment you start choosing peace, choosing space, choosing yourself, some people won't celebrate your growth. They'll question it. They'll call you different. They'll say things like, you've changed. And honestly, they're right. You have. And thank God for that. Because the version of you that said yes while silently drowning, she was surviving. And this version of you, she's learning how to live. And sometimes blooming looks like grieving that old version of yourself, the woman who kept the peace, the woman who kept quiet, the woman who smiled when she was hurting, the woman who thought being needed meant being loved. I know that one hits deep because growth doesn't just ask you to become someone new. Growth asks you to release what no longer fits. The old stories, patterns, people, old identities, and beautiful soul, that releasing part, that's where people freeze. Not because they don't want to grow, but because they're terrified of what growth might ask them to leave behind. And if that's where you are right now, you're not falling apart. You might just be blooming. And you know what keeps us stuck? And no, it's usually not lack of ability. It's not because you're not smart enough, capable enough. It's not because you don't have what it takes. Honestly, most women I talk to are incredibly capable. They're brilliant, resourceful, they're resilient as heck. They know how to figure things out. They know how to make things happen. They know how to carry the weight. So if it's not ability, then what is it? It's attachment. Yeah. And attachment is sneaky because attachment doesn't always show up looking toxic. Sometimes it shows up looking loyal, looking responsible. Sometimes it even shows up looking loving. And if we're being real, a lot of what we call loyalty is actually fear, fear of disappointing people, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being needed anymore, fear that if we stop being who everybody is used to, they may stop choosing us. Now, that one stings a little, doesn't it? Because maybe, just maybe, you've been the strong one for so long that you don't even know who you are without carrying everybody else. Maybe you've been the dependable one, the one everybody calls when life falls apart, the fixer, the peacemaker, the I'll handle it woman, the woman who checks on everyone else while secretly hoping someone will notice she's tired too. Hmm. Yeah, that woman. And sometimes along the way, without even realizing it, you started connecting your worth to your usefulness. You started believing that people needed that meant you were loved. That if you kept showing up, kept helping, fixing, kept saying yes, that maybe people would stay. Maybe they'd appreciate you. Maybe they'd choose you. And beautiful soul, here's the hard truth. Being needed and being loved are not the same thing. And a lot of women spend years exhausting themselves trying to earn a love that they already are worthy of. Yeah, let that one land. So now, when you start changing, when you start saying things like, I can't do that right now, or saying that doesn't work for me, maybe saying I need some space, or I'm not available that way anymore, something interesting happens. The guilt shows up almost instantly. And isn't that wild? You can say yes to everybody else for years while abandoning yourself. And somehow that feels normal. But the moment you choose yourself, now we feel guilty. Mm, we feel guilty. That guilt isn't always selfishness. That guilt is often grief. It's identity grief. Because part of you is realizing the version of you that kept everybody comfortable, the version that overgave, overexplained, overperformed. She can't come where you're going. And that can feel lonely. And that can feel uncomfortable. That can feel like everything around you is shifting. You know, relationships, they start feeling different. Conversations start feeling different. Your tolerance, it gets lower, and your peace becomes more valuable. And suddenly the things that you used to tolerate start feeling heavy. And you start wondering, am I losing people? Am I becoming too much? Maybe I'm changing too much. Well, beautiful soul, can I tell you something with all the love in my heart? You're not becoming too much. You're becoming too honest to keep pretending. You're becoming too aware to keep abandoning yourself. You're becoming too aligned to keep shrinking. And yes, that may cost you comfort. It may cost your approval. It may even cost you some relationships built on the old you. But what if you're not losing anything? And what if, for the first time in your life, you finally find yourself? Yes, the version of you. And guess what? She is worth meeting. So hear me when I say this. You're not losing your life, you're aligning with it. And I really need that to land, not just in your head, but in your spirit. Because I know what it can feel like when life starts shifting, when relationships start feeling different, when conversations that used to feel easy now feel exhausting, when places you used to fit suddenly feel too tight, when the things you used to tolerate feel heavy. And if you're not careful, you'll start questioning yourself. You'll start asking, what's wrong with me? Why am I so emotional lately? Why can't I just be the old me? Why does everything feel different? Well, beautiful soul, maybe nothing is wrong with you. Maybe you're waking up. Maybe your soul is finally getting louder and your survival patterns, well, maybe for the first time in your life, you're healing yourself. And that can feel disorienting because when you spent years being who everybody else needed you to be, being who you need to be can feel unfamiliar. And anything unfamiliar can feel scary. And unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. Sometimes unfamiliar means growth, healing. Sometimes unfamiliar means you're finally becoming the woman you were always meant to be before life taught you to shrink. Now, hear me. You're not becoming difficult. You're not becoming discerning. And there's a difference because you are becoming discerning. Difficult says, I want control. Discernment says, I know what brings me peace. Difficult says, I want my way. Discernment, it says, I've worked too hard on my healing to betray myself now. So let's be honest. A lot of women have been labeled too much simply because they're finally stopped being easy to manipulate. Mhm. I said what I said. Because the moment you stop over explaining, the moment you stop over giving, the moment you stop saying yes when your soul is screaming no, some people won't call it growth. They'll call it attitude. They'll call it distance, selfish. And let's tell the truth. What they o- what they often mean is this. You're no longer as easy to access as you used to be. Mhm. That's not a problem. That's growth. You're not becoming cold, you're becoming clear. And clarity? Oh, clarity makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who benefited from your confusion. especially the ones who like the version of you that didn't ask questions, the version of you that didn't have boundaries, the version of you that said yes, even when it cost you your peace. The version, that version made life easier for them, but not for you. And now you're learning something powerful. You can be loving and still have limits. You can be kind and still say no. You can have a soft heart and strong boundaries. That's not harshness. That's wisdom. That's emotional maturity. That's healing. And listen to me, anything that cannot grow with you was never meant to hold you. And I know that's hard to hear because some relationships come with history, some relationships come with memories, some relationships come with loyalty. And sometimes we confuse history with destiny. Just because someone has been with you in one season doesn't automatically mean they're meant for the next one. And that doesn't make you mean. It doesn't make you disloyal or selfish. It makes you honest. It means you're finally honoring the woman you're becoming instead of constantly abandoning her to keep everybody else comfortable. That kind of honesty, that kind of alignment, that changes everything. Because once a woman starts honoring her peace, her standards change, her relationships change, her conversations change, her life changes. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. So let's have a real conversation about this. And when I say real, I mean the kind of conversation people avoid because it asks us to look in the mirror. Because I'll be honest with you, I've had seasons in my life where choosing alignment over approval felt like heartbreak. Not because I didn't know what I needed to do, but because I knew exactly what it might cost me. And if you've ever been there, you know exactly what I mean. Those moments when your soul knows something has to change and your heart is terrified of what that change might disrupt. I've had seasons where I've had to smile less and speak truth more. And let me tell you, that wasn't always easy because for a long time, like many women, I thought keeping the peace meant keeping everyone happy. I thought being loving meant always being available. I thought being a good woman meant being understanding, being flexible, being accommodating, being there always. And somewhere along the way, I started noticing something. Everyone around me was being supported. I was exhausted. Everyone around me felt heard. I wasn't speaking. Everyone around me felt comfortable, but I was quietly disappearing. And beautiful soul, that's a wake up call. That's the kind of realization that makes you sit in silence and ask yourself, when did I become so available to everybody else and so unavailable to myself? Hmm. That question right there, that question changes everything. Because once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. And for me, there came a season where I had to stop explaining. So, can we talk about that for a second? Because women love to explain. We explain our boundaries, We explain our no, we explain our decisions, we explain our silence, we explain why we're tired, we explain why we need space. We explain and explain and explain, hoping people will understand. And beautiful soul, can I lovingly say this? Sometimes all of that explaining isn't communication. Sometimes it's fear, fear of being misunderstood, fear of disappointing someone, fear that if we don't make it sound soft enough, kind enough, acceptable enough, people might leave. And I had to learn not everybody needs an explanation. Some people just need your answer. Yeah. And that one might have stung a little, but it's true. I had to learn that no is a complete sentence, that I'm not available is enough, that that doesn't work for me. Doesn't need a 5 paragraph explanation, a PowerPoint presentation, and a follow up email. No, ma'am. Because somebody only respects your boundary after you exhaust yourself explaining it. They're not honoring you, they're negotiating your limits. Yeah, I know. That one hit. And then came the hard part. I had to stop overgiving. And if you're a woman who loves deeply, serves deeply, who carries deeply, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about saying yes when you're tired, showing up when you're empty, listening when you're the one who needs to be heard, pouring and pouring and pouring until one day you realize you're running on fumes. And the dangerous part, people often celebrate that version of you. They call you selfless. They call you amazing. They call you dependable. And while those things may sound beautiful, something underneath all of that, you're quietly resentful. Not because you don't love people, but because somewhere deep down, you know you've been abandoning yourself to keep being who everyone praises. Resentment is often the voice of ignored boundaries. Gonna let that one sit for a minute. Resentment doesn't always mean somebody is doing something wrong. Sometimes it means you have been saying yes when your spirit has been saying no. And then comes the hard part of all. I had to stop shrinking because shrinking can become normal. You don't even realize you're doing it. You laugh smaller, you speak softer, you hold back your opinions, you dim your energy, you make yourself easier to digest, you make yourself less direct, less powerful, less honest, less you. All because somewhere along the way you learned that being fully yourself made some people uncomfortable. You were never meant to spend your life making yourself smaller so other people could feel bigger. You were never meant to mute your truth to protect someone else's comfort. You were never meant to carry everyone while silently dropping pieces of yourself. And let me tell you something that I've learned. The hardest boundaries, they are almost never with strangers. Strangers don't usually have access to your heart like that. The hardest boundaries are the with the people that you love, the people you've built history with, the people who knew the version of you that said yes while silently drowning, the people who got used to your availability, used to your forgiveness, your flexibility, used to your emotional labor. And when that version of you starts changing, sometimes people don't know what to do with it. Sometimes they're going to push back. Sometimes they're going to question you. Sometimes they say, "You've changed." Beautiful soul, you look them dead in the eye with love and you say, "You're right. I have." Because healing changes you, growth changes you, alignment changes you. And this is where soft boundaries change everything for me. Because I used to think boundaries had to be sound hard. They were cold, sharp, defensive. But I learned something beautiful. Boundaries can be soft and still be strong. Soft boundaries sound like, "I love you, but can I? But I can't carry this for you." It could also sound like, "I care about you, but I need time to recharge." A soft boundary sounds like, "I hear you, but that doesn't work for me anymore." Another soft boundary sounds like, "I'm cheering for you, but I can't save you." Do you hear that? There's no yelling, anger, drama, no guilt trip, no proving, no performing, just truth. And truth spoken with peace. That's power. That's real power. Not controlling power, not performative power, hmm, not ego power, soul power. And here's what I know now: you can stay connected without abandoning yourself, you can love deeply without losing yourself. You can show compassion without becoming everybody's emotional home. You can be kind without being endlessly available. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, that's okay. Because your job isn't to be available to everyone. Your job is to be aligned with yourself. That's maturity. That's healing. That is emotional wisdom. And beautiful soul, that is what blooming really looks like. Not perfect, not polished, and not always pretty. It's honest, alive, rooted, and finally free. And then, beautiful soul, something beautiful starts to happen. And I mean really beautiful. Not perfect, not effortless, not overnight, but real. Something shifts when you stop fighting your growth. Something shifts when you stop arguing with what your soul has been trying to tell you. Because let's be honest, sometimes growth isn't hard because we don't know what to do. Sometimes growth feels hard because deep down, you already know. You know the conversations we need to have. We know the boundary we need to set. We know the relationship that feels heavy. We know the habit that keeps draining us. We know the places where we've been saying yes while our spirit has been quietly whispering no. And if we're being really honest, a lot of our exhaustion doesn't come from life, it comes from fighting while we already know. Yeah, that one hits hard. And it may have stung a little because there's something exhausting about pretending. Pretending you're okay when you're not. Pretending something doesn't bother you when it does. Pretending you have the energy when you're running on empty. Pretending you're available when what you really need is space. That pretending, it will wear you out. But something powerful happens when you stop pretending and start honoring you, honoring your energy, your peace, your needs, honoring your truth, and yes, honoring your boundaries. Because boundaries aren't walls, boundaries are wisdom. They're not there to push people away, they're there to keep you connected to you. And when you start honoring them, relationships start feeling cleaner. Not because everybody suddenly changes, because you do. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop overcommitting, over explaining. You stop volunteering your peace just to keep other people comfortable. And beautiful soul, that changes the room. Conversations start feeling clear because you're no longer speaking from exhaustion, you're speaking from truth. You're no longer speaking from guilt, you're speaking from alignment. And resentment, well, resentment starts to dissolve because resentment often grows in a place where boundaries have been ignored. And when you finally start honoring yourself, that heaviness starts to lift. The frustration starts to soften. That inner tension starts easing. And for the first time in a long time, your inner compass stays intact. And if we've spent years abandoning yourself, you know how powerful that feels to not leave a conversation second guessing yourself, to not leave a room replaying what you should have said, to not lie awake wondering if you gave too much, said too much, explaining too much. Instead, you feel steady, grounded, clear, because you're no longer asking, will they approve? Will they understand? Will they still like me? No, now you're asking a different question, a better question, a healing question. Does this align? Does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this align with my peace? Does this align with my values? Does this align with the life I say I want? Those questions, those questions change everything. Because once a woman starts choosing alignment over approval, she doesn't just change her relationships, she changes her life. So, my beautiful soul, before you respond this week, before you commit to something your spirit hasn't agreed to, before you automatically jump in and fix it, before you say yes because it feels easier than disappointing someone, before you explain yourself to the 10th time, before you make yourself available just because someone else expects you to be, I want you to pause for a moment. Not for them, for you. Because if you're anything like so many women I talk to, and if I'm being honest, like I've been at different seasons in my own life, sometimes we respond so fast, we don't even realize who is doing the responding. Is it the healed version of you or the people pleasing version of you? Is it the grounded version of you or the version that's still afraid someone might leave if you say no? That's a real question, isn't it? Because sometimes what looks like kindness is actually fear. Sometimes what looks like loyalty is actually guilt. Sometimes what looks like being a good person is actually self abandonment, wearing a pretty outfit. Yes, I said that. So before you answer, before you volunteer, before you agree, before you carry something that may not even belong to you, ask yourself one simple question. Am I responding from alignment or approval? Am I saying yes because it feels true or because I'm afraid of what happens if I say no? Am I showing up because my heart wants to or because guilt is driving the car again? And then I want you to be quiet long enough to hear your soul answer. Not your fear, not your conditioning, not the version of you that's been trying to keep everybody comfortable. Your soul. And your soul doesn't shout, it whispers, it nudges, it gently says, this is yours. This is too much. This no is holy. This is where your peace lives. And the beautiful part, your compass already knows. The question is, are you finally ready to trust her? So, your soul work for this week, I want you to sit with this question. What am I holding on to that's keeping me from expanding? And I want you to realize one thing. Maybe it's a habit, a belief, a story, a draining connection, a version of yourself that no longer fits. Just one thing. Because sometimes blooming doesn't begin with adding, sometimes blooming begins with releasing. This is Soulful Saturdays with Saylor, and I'm your girl, Cindy Saylor, reminding you growth may cost you comfort, but it will never cost you who you truly are. So until next time, keep blooming, keep becoming, and for heaven's sake, stop apologizing for growing. This is our episode Blooming Will Cost You, and it's worth it. Thanks for tuning in, beautiful souls. Take this week to listen to the whispers and remember your soul knows the way. As you move through the week, carry this truth in your heart. You are worthy, you are radiant, and your presence matters. And never forget, stay soulful, stay sassy, stay you. I'll see you next Saturday, beautiful soul. Same time, same vibe, same glorious energy.